Today I'm going to be interviewing Norma's son about when she was younger in Stockholm.
Yep.
Okay, so what was your favorite thing about living in Stockholm?
Well, all my friends were in Stockholm. Started first grade with them, and lots of family, and it's just a small, close community, and it was good living. We lived on a farm, but so did everybody else, it seemed too. So, yeah, it was a good place to grow up.
What was school like for you?
Oh, school was good. We were lots of kids, and I mean our social activities were all centered around school and church. We had Luther League and 4-H, and we had socials at school, and there were a lot of activities going on, and it was totally different nowadays. And we had 2 years of high school here in Stockholm, and for our junior and senior year, my mother and my aunt Astrid, who lived here in this house, sent my cousin Diane and I off to Ricker, because there was no school bus or any public transportation really. So they didn't want us to hang around the streets of Caribou or looking for a ride home or anything like that. So we got sent to Ricker, where we lived down there in a girls' dormitory. And that was good too, because we were right there for everything, all the school activities and everything.
What is the most memorable thing from your childhood?
Oh, gee, it's hard. It's hard to remember. I can't think of anything. It was just our way of life. It was good. I lived on a farm, and we all had our jobs. We all worked, but there was a lot of play too. And I had lots of friends and relatives, and there was always something going on. People were always up visiting, I just think there were a lot of things, big things. There was a winter carnival, and there'd be Christmas and special times. So it was good, I think. I have good memories of my childhood.
What was Midsummer like for you compared to how it is now?
Well, now they've really organized it, and it's really a big deal. People come from all over, even from Sweden. And back when I was young, I remember one time we went to New Sweden. I think that's where it was. It was at the Lutheran church. And they had booths around, and they sold homemade ice cream and pie. And our choir, we had a big choir at church, and they sang, and us kids would run around, and we didn't go to New Sweden that often. Well, we didn't leave town that often as kids. I think our parents did, but we usually were left at home with older siblings to babysit us. But it wasn't a big deal like it is nowadays. It would have been fun, I think, if it happened. So,
How many siblings
do I have?
do you have?
Well, we were 7 children. The twins were the oldest. I had twin sisters, and Lillian and Vivian, and then my oldest brother Buddy, and Jerry, and then there was me, and Frederick and Johnny. So I had 2 older sisters, and 2 older brothers, and 2 younger brothers.
Okay. How different is Stockholm today than it was?
Oh, it's a lot smaller. It was bigger. We had a lot more people here. And even further back, I've heard my parents talk about when the mills were going, and there were a couple thousand people living in Stockholm at the time. I do remember when I started school, there were a few wooden sidewalks even. Can you imagine that? And
Not being wooden, no.
no,
I don't think I've ever seen a wooden
no, well, it was
sidewalk.
only here and there, and they were beginning to fall apart, so it wasn't long before the town took up the sidewalks, and I think there was a mill. Sam Andworth had a mill going, and because I can remember logs floating down the river, and I remember too in the wintertime we used to skate on the river. There were a lot of kids downtown, a lot of people. Lake Street was full of houses, and there just were a lot more people. It was good. It was any season whatsoever. But we walked to school, and it was cold back then. And I can remember all the Hill kids. We'd walk down, and at Anderson's IGA, there was a great big floor register, and we'd all squeeze onto that register and warm up before we walked over to school.
What type of chores did you have?
Oh, well, we'd pick rocks in the spring, and we would pick weeds, mustard, and we did that. We helped with hay. I can remember, even though I was very young, I was maybe 6, 7. They didn't bale hay back then. We didn't have hay balers. I don't even know if they were around, but it was all loose hay, and they used to haul it up and into the top of the barn, and then they'd put it where they wanted it, and I'd have to pull the rope in, because they would use a horse to pull the rope out that would lift the hay, a whole bunch of hay up in the top of the barn, and then I'd have to pull it back. So everybody, even though we were young and small, we all had a job. And then as I got older, and my 2 older sisters went off to work in the city, and I had to take over washing. The worst part was washing the milk separator and scalding it. And I had a brother that was a rascal, my brother Jerry, and I swear he'd set that milk pail down in a cow flop just to make it dirty before he'd bring it in, and we'd have to wipe the milk pail off. I said, boy, I'm never going to marry a farmer, and I didn't.
What were your parents' occupation? Probably isn't the right word. What did your parents do?
My father was he was a farmer. They were small farmers back then. There wasn't this big agribusiness, and they had a tractor. Well, when I was 5 years old, we moved up to the home farm, and my grandparents retired and moved down into the village. My father, being the oldest son, got the farm. So we thought that was wonderful. But there was a lot of work, and they grew potatoes, was our cash crop, but we were self-sufficient. We had cows and milk cows and pigs and chickens and, and a big garden. And my mother would can and freeze, and so it was a good life. And my mother, she was 7 children. She had her hands full. She was I guess nowadays you'd say she was a housewife, a homemaker. But when she had time, she'd help my father too. Like during potato digging, when we'd be out in the field later in the evening, and she'd go out and she'd milk the cows and do the chores, and just so when they came in, nobody had to work in the dark really. And she helped wherever she could, and she could work like a man, inside and out. they didn't make women like that. They don't make it like that anymore, you know. She was strong, and she was quick.
What is something that you wished you had as a kid?
Wished I had again? Oh, I wish everybody could have the way of life we had back then. Although I gotta say, I enjoy my dishwasher and my automatic washing machine and dryer especially. I enjoy the modern conveniences, but still it was an innocent, good way of life. You know, church was the center of our life. We all got up and went to church every Sunday morning. Or my mother laid down the law and she said, if you can't give God 1 hour a week, I'm sorry, girl, but you can't go out the rest of the week. So and I applied it to my children too, which I don't know. Sometimes I think it didn't take, so.
Is there any other stories that jump out as you as something that
I'm
would be
thinking
worth
of
sharing?
Christmas. Christmas was especially, that was magical. And Christmas Eve, we'd go down to my mother's parents, my Ober grandparents, and they didn't have electricity. I have one memory of dancing around the Christmas tree, and there were candles on the tree. It was only briefly, and we had to be so careful. And then Christmas Day, we'd go up to the home farm, up to my father's mother and father, my Sandstrom grandparents, and all the other kids would come. Their kids, my aunts and uncles and cousins. We were so many cousins. The older ones would go out in the barn and race heck, and the rest of us we'd go upstairs and play hide and seek. I bet Randy Sandstrom had a fit by the next day when she had to straighten out the house from all of us. But the grown-ups had so much fun, and she was a super cook, and we ate wonderful things. And then as we got older and we were living on the farm, my mother always had an open house on Christmas Day, and relatives would come, and a lot of friends from all over the town would come, and she would make silta, that's hogshead cheese, and pickled pig's feet, and sill, that's pickled herring, and there'd be rye bread and white bread and cookies galore. I mean, I don't know how she did it all. Really, I don't know. But they'd start coming in the morning and they'd stay all day until she just got worn out. She said she was too old to do it anymore. And I also remember Christmas Eve, they'd go out and they'd kill the rooster, the big old rooster, and sometimes it would be kind of tough too. And there was always a pork roast and lutefisk. Us kids didn't eat lutefisk, so that was terrible. But the grown-ups did, and I remember it would turn the good silver black. So my mother would put the old everyday silver, and they had to eat their lutefisk with the fork, because she wasn't going to have them turn her good silver black. And as we got older, I liked lutefisk. Once a year was plenty, but it was good.
I have to ask, what is lutefisk?
It's live fish. It took a lot of preparation, and I think she'd go down to John Anderson's store, and John Anderson used to prepare it. It was like hard as a board, and I don't know if it was cod or what it was made out of, really. But anyway, they'd soak it in lye, and they'd wash it and soak it and change it. Keep changing the water until then at Christmas time it would be soft, and they would boil it and serve it with a white sauce. And like I said, it wasn't bad. It wasn't too bad. To me, it was not much of anything. Not too much taste. It was what you put on it. You know, the white sauce, and she cut up some boiled eggs in it. And I don't know what she spiced it with. Maybe a little. They put allspice in everything, so I don't know. Maybe it was that.
And you're okay with me posting this to the internet?
Beg your pardon?
You're okay with me posting this to the internet?
Oh, on the internet?
To YouTube.
Yeah, I'm okay.